everyone. So yesterday somebody asked me if affirmations and visualizations and all that positivity stuff actually works, and why it seems to work so well for some people and yet it doesn't work at all for others, and even with people for whom it normally seems to work, how come some affirmations work and some don't. So I thought I would take this opportunity to explain a little about the kinds of circumstances that prevent affirmations from working, and the sort of things you can do to be more effective with your affirmations and visualizations if that is something that you use. So first, your spirit is not going to allow you to create something, or if you do manage to create it, it's not going to let you keep it, if you actually fear the creation. So, for example, a lot of people are actually afraid to heal from a chronic illness because the illness has gotten them the kind of loving attention from family members and from friends that maybe they've never had before, or because it's letting them finally rest after having run around like crazy and run themselves ragged taking care of other people for so long. So the illness serves a purpose. And so while these people really want to feel better, they're afraid that if they do, they're going to lose the benefits that the illness has created for them. And so they can do affirmation after affirmation about healing, but it's just not going to work because deep down, they don't really want it to. So with everything that you want to create, it is really important to ask yourself, do I really want this thing in the way that I seem to be wanting to create it? Or is there an aspect of it that actually frightens me? And these feelings can be pretty sneaky, so it's important to really take your time and listen to yourself here. Now, second, your spirit is not going to let you create something that you really, truly don't believe you deserve. If you're affirming and affirming and affirming and visualizing like crazy, and yet what you're actually thinking is, I don't deserve this, then it's extremely unlikely that you're going to get it. Or if you do get it, this is when you lose it, because it affirms your belief that you're undeserving. So I see this a lot with regard to people's weight struggles, actually. In our culture, we often perceive being overweight as a form of punishment for bad behavior. We perceive thin people as doing all of the right things for themselves. They must be doing it right, we think, because, after all, they're thin, so it must work. And we think overweight people must be making poor choices, so eating too much or eating the wrong things or not exercising enough, for example. And this is pure fallacy. There are plenty of thin people who overeat and don't exercise, and plenty of overweight people who eat really, really healthfully, make great choices, and exercise like crazy. But our culture is so obsessed with weight and with trying to figure out exactly how to attain a certain ideal that we ourselves have really internalized thin equals good behavior and fat equals bad behavior. And so if you're carrying a great deal of guilt, you're more likely to struggle with being overweight, as your weight is an expression of feeling the need to be punished in some way. You think that you're behaving in a way that deserves punishment, or you're feeling in a certain way that deserves punishment. So when this is the case, even though you're visualizing yourself thin like crazy, or you're doing affirmations to create it, what's going on underneath the surface in your unconscious is, I am not allowed to be thin because I don't deserve it. And if you're affirming, visualizing weight loss, and yet every time you eat something, you're thinking, I shouldn't do this, or you're beating yourself up, you're also communicating undeservedness to yourself. So it seems weird, but getting what we deserve feels safe to us. It feels predictable. It gives us a sense of control. So we may be unhappy with the circumstances, but it still logically makes sense, and in that way makes us feel good. Getting something we don't think we deserve feels really frightening and creates a sense of insecurity because we're afraid we're going to somehow be punished for having it, or we aren't sure how or why we obtained it, and so we fear losing it. If you're affirming, visualizing something and it just isn't working, or if you're getting the opposite of what you think you want, then start asking how you feel with regard to deservedness. Do you think you actually deserve this thing? And if not, why? This is a really excellent opportunity to begin releasing some hidden sources of guilt in your life. Third, Your spirit is not going to allow you to create something that you simply do not believe is possible. If you're visualizing, and yet the whole time you're doing so, what you're actually thinking and feeling is, there is no way this is going to happen, it's not going to happen. This type of blockage has really always fascinated me because it is really unbelievably powerful. When we change our belief about what is possible for us, our life really changes in the most mind-boggling ways. So we don't even have to do anything. We just have to allow for the possibility that we don't have all the answers and that miracles could happen, and more that they could happen to us. And what's even cooler is that we don't actually have to believe it's going to happen. We just have to believe that it could. And that opens up the way for things to happen. So when we step into this place, we let the universe work for us instead of hamstringing it with this prescribed set of steps and circumstances. And this is really when miracles happen, and when they happen in the craziest ways. So, for example, years ago, I suddenly had this bizarre urge to be on television. I thought it might be a great way to advertise my services. And this idea came out of nowhere. And my immediate response was, how on earth is that going to happen? Because I didn't know anybody on TV, and commercials just seemed ridiculous, and I couldn't have afforded them anyway. And just being on TV itself just seemed, I don't know, like a weird idea. And yet it was something I kind of wanted. It was such a crazy idea, and probably because it was so crazy, I wasn't really wrapped up in the idea of whether or not it could really happen. I just decided I was going to have fun with it. And so I spent like an hour and a half walk. I remember it. I was doing nothing but affirming. I'm on television, I'm on television, I'm on television. And there was no resistance in my mind whatsoever, because it was just so crazy. I didn't even really have to worry about whether it was going to happen or not. It's just one of those things, like if it did, great. Anyway, I got back to my house and I opened up Facebook to check a status on an event that I was doing for a nonprofit organization. Lo and behold, they literally minutes before had done a post asking for people to appear on television, advertising their services and helping encourage people to come to the event. So I was on TV a week later, and I have continued to do a television spot for that nonprofit, or I did continue for several years. I might do it again this year, I don't know for sure. So I did wind up in television within an hour and a half of doing that affirmation. So what on earth is going on when we believe our affirmation is possible, we believe we deserve it, and we most definitely want it, and it's still not coming true? One possibility is that we are so obsessed with having it that we're not able to relax and listen to our intuition guiding us towards obtaining it. When we really become wrapped up in wanting something, we tend to look at everything in our lives as either leading towards that thing or leading away from it. And when we feel a natural urge to do something, we put it through the, does this make logical sense and is going to lead me to what I want test. And this is the fastest way to stop yourself from getting what you want. Because guys, in most cases, the stuff that we want does not come to us in a logical fashion. So let's say you're affirming like crazy that you are going to meet your perfect partner. And suddenly you have the craziest urge to go bowling. And normally you hate bowling. You consider the idea and it feels oddly good. You can't figure out why, but it feels good. And yet logically you're going, I could never meet anybody at a bowling alley. Why would I go to a bowling alley? People like me don't go bowling. And besides, if I meet somebody at a bowling alley, I'm going to have to bowl all the time because they'll love bowling, and I'll have to do that to maintain the relationship. I'm not going to do that. And so you don't go. And when you don't go bowling that night, you miss meeting your soulmate, who also hates bowling, but reluctantly agreed to go to the bowling alley anyway to celebrate his niece's birthday that night. So the success of affirmations and visualizations is largely dependent on taking yourself out of the equation as a decision maker. Your part in the creation of what you want is to believe that it's possible and to mentally put yourself in the space of feeling how it would feel if you had it, not to intentionally take specific actions. The second you start judging those things that your intuition tells you to do, those things that feel good, as either leading you to or from your goal, you're standing in your own way. Now, lastly, sometimes we are just not intended to have the thing that we want in the way or time that we want it. because there are other factors at work and we couldn't have been aware of them. So we don't heal immediately because we're meant to meet our soulmate while we're receiving treatment for our illness. Or we don't make the money we're visualizing in our present job because if we did, it would keep us from taking this new job that appears on the horizon and would be so much better for us. Or we don't lose the weight immediately because being heavier is what finally encourages us to start taking walks in the evening. And when we do, we discover we love leisurely walks and they become our new reason for being. So to use affirmation and visualization successfully, we have to remember the universe really does want us to be happy. And so the way and time in which things occur is always perfect. This is not the easiest thing to accept. I will be honest with you guys, some days I still struggle with this. But the more we can sit back and relax, the more we allow the universe to direct the process. And so we get there in the best and fastest way possible. So affirmations and visualizations really help crystallize our direction. They help us understand what we want. They help us feel our way there. They help us get rid of the blockages. But the way and time things will happen to us will always be perfect if we just allow ourselves to flow. A good reason for affirmations and visualizations is, again, to help us get out of our own way. Once we're out of our own way, everything really tends to work. So with all of this in mind, the surest way to know if you're preventing yourself from getting what you want, preventing an affirmation from working, is to say it out loud and notice how you feel. Do you feel excited? Do you feel hopeful? Do you feel a little scared it won't come true, but still open to the idea that it could? Then you're on the right path. But if you feel anger, frustration, sadness, fear, and the kind of fear that's not mitigated by hope, or any other negative emotion, or if you feel like this just can't happen, then there are some underlying feelings that you are going to need to release before your affirmation is going to do you any good at all. The same goes for visualization. If you visualize yourself having something that you want, and you feel any of the aforementioned negative sensations, then there's a part of you that doesn't actually want this visualization to come true, and it would be in your best interest to examine it. For this reason, I actually use visualization to test whether or not I'm in a place to receive something that I want. A few seconds after visualizing, I can easily tell if I'm standing in my own way because all those negative emotions come up. Now, the same person who asked me if affirmations and visualization work also asked if I use them for myself, and I do, but only when I feel aligned with them. Many years ago, I turned myself into a red-hot mess by trying to force myself to only think happy thoughts when my emotions and beliefs were anything but. I learned the hard way that our emotions exist for a reason, and trying to cover them up with affirmations we don't actually believe not only keeps us stuck, but can make us really sick, and I made myself really sick. So if an emotion is there, I feel it. If a negative thought is there and it won't go away, I just sit with it and I listen to it and I let it speak to me, and eventually I calm down and the thought dissipates. So these days, while I really love affirmations and visualization, they tend to occur naturally as a consequence of already being in the place where I'm ready to receive what I want. So I know it's coming, and so I enjoy thinking about it or fantasizing about it, rather than it being something I intentionally do in order to receive it. So again, it's more like a litmus test. I'll do it to see if I'm in the place to receive something, and if I'm not, then I work on it, and I work on it, I release, and then eventually I get to the place where the visualizations and affirmations happen naturally as a consequence of just knowing what I want is going to come. So this is a really delightful place in which to be, and I wish all of you the same joyful feelings of positive expectation. Now, if you are interested in receiving my services as a metaphysical counselor, you can check out my webpage, which is www.ravenlightholistichealing.com. If you click on the services tab, it explains everything that I do, and if you click on the contact tab, then it will tell you how to get in touch with me and what information is required to schedule a session. You can also find me on Facebook at Raven Light Holistic Healing and at Instagram. All of you have a wonderful day. Cheers, my darlings.